In a very scaly episode of Won't You Be My Gamer, we are playing The Witcher 3 with Dr. Emily Zarka, and we are talking about the folklore behind the monsters of the game. We're also talking about the truth, the real folklore truth behind the dragons of Game of Thrones. And we're asking an important question. What's the deal with bridge trolls? Nicole, you are a Witcher, correct?
Yeah, I am a Witcher, and we are playing The Witcher 3, and we're going to be looking for some trolls for you. We're going to look for some baddies. We're going to look for some monsters, and are the monsters in their homes relaxing? Yes.
Oh.
Am I going to terrorize them and rid them of this world? Yes.
They're just trying to live.
They're just trying to live.
Honestly.
Like, truly?
Like, he's the problem.
100%. 100% the problem. I see flapping wings, but do you see anyone screaming, saying help? No. But we're going to attack anyway.
Oh, jeez.
And while we're hunting for monsters, we're also going to be pitting monsters against one another in our bracket of which the ultimate monster, cryptid, etc. would be. We have a bunch of monsters pulled from The Witcher 3 here on the board, and Emily, you'll be weighing in with your expert opinion on those. But which monster are we up against first?
This is the wyvern.
Yay.
Okay.
Does not look like it wants to fight me. He's like, I'm up here, don't
literally
worry
just
about
chilling.
it.
What is a wyvern?
So a wyvern would be what some people consider like a type of dragon. So a serpentine beast that can also fly. That's usually dangerous and poses a threat to humans. So wyverns, though, are characterized by the fact that they only have 2 legs and then 2 wings. So they're more like akin to bats than like the 4 sort of legged dragon, which does mean that Game of Thrones dragons are actually wyverns, and they have been from the beginning.
Oh,
Did
Oh, you kill it already, Nicole? Oh my gosh, you're OP.
I didn't want this.
Are you gonna like at least harvest something?
I'm
from
gonna
it?
loot it. I didn't want this though. I didn't want this.
Wyvern
hide.
hide, monster eye,
Oh, an egg.
wyvern egg.
But I'm gonna hatch the egg. I'm gonna raise it as my own. We're gonna be pacifists through the towns. I think it's actually gonna be beautiful. Could it be like dragon is the category and then wyvern is the subcategory? Dog, golden retriever?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Because then there's like the dragons that are almost like sea dragons or lake dragons, river, where they're more just like worms, like serpents that may or may not have wings.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In dragon mythology, is there a hierarchy? Like, this dragon is more powerful than this dragon?
I would definitely say so, but I think it also depends on like what part of the world's dragons we're talking about. So like Europe has the 4-legged dragon, the wyvern, like the serpentine one, but then something like China has their version of the dragon, which I would consider to be probably the most powerful. So it's a conglomeration of different kinds of sort of animals that are important to their traditions. So they can, fly through the sky, but they can also swim. Sometimes they can talk. They have like special abilities. So I would say if you were going to pit like a wyvern versus the traditional Chinese dragon, traditional Chinese dragon's going to win.
Okay, and the fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah, the fire-breathing stuff actually is like a little bit later tradition-wise, and it comes a lot from, again, European sort of communities where associating them with treasure has a lot to do usually with them protecting what might be like actual mining sites or like actual stores of gold or ore, iron, or those kind of things. So when you're mining in those spaces, you might have like a chemical reaction where then it's going to look like a burst of fire is coming from underground. So that's why dragons and fire breathing sort of linked up.
Is the mountain kind of the dragon's sort of natural domain?
Yeah, or like low country stuff like caves. Yeah, or the ocean or rivers too. I know that there's like the French gargoyle, where actually gargoyle comes from, that was like in the River Seine.
So on our bracket, we have the wyvern pitted against the basilisk. Emily, what is a basilisk?
So it gets kind of complicated because a basilisk, there's basically 2 versions and they're the same thing, but they've evolved over time. So originally a basilisk was a snake. It wasn't even a particularly big snake, but it was supposed to be incredibly venomous. So that includes literally even someone who stabs it with a knife, the poison can like come up the knife and kill them that way. Its breath is poisonous. Its like eyesight is poisonous. Basically everything about this thing can kill all life, including like vegetation, including humans. And the earliest depictions of them, they're just snakes with like a special marking on the top of their head that looks like a crown. So that's kind of where they got like king snake from. But over time, through a very odd sequence of events that no one's still 100% sure about, it became associated with the chicken.
So it looks more like that.
Yes. This one's actually really reptilian.
Wings.
Oh yeah, well, because the chicken has wings.
Yeah, but I've always, to me, basilisk is simply Chamber of Secrets.
Yes,
and
that's the thing.
And it's a snake
So
with teeth.
yeah, that Harry Potter basilisk is accurate to the original lore in that it's a snake, but it's way bigger than it should be. Like literally these snakes were described as like just over a foot long. I've never seen one this reptilian. Usually it's like the cockatrice interpretation. So there's what we think happened is that the original basilisk with that like diadem type marking on its head, the way it's depicted there, got interpreted as a rooster's comb. And then we start seeing more combination of like snakes with wings and a rooster comb. And then it just turned into basically a chicken wearing a crown with like a snake-like tail.
Oh, is there a particular part of the world where this originated, all this lore?
Yeah, Western Europe primarily, although some of it was like Mediterranean originally, with like the Scythian people, I believe, who were like a nomadic group. And there's some old stories in like Greek and Roman tradition of them sort of fighting these snakes.
I'm always so curious when it comes to a cryptid or a monster, like what was maybe more the real thing that we know exists for sure, without a shadow of a doubt? Like, what maybe could we have confused this or misconstrued this with?
So, hot take is, I think the most likely, some people will argue it was like a cobra.
Snakes are scary.
Snakes are scary, and snakes lay eggs and chickens lay eggs, so I can kind of see what happens there. So, like, the more chicken-y version, I believe, is when a chicken raises, like, a toad egg. And there are some instances, which is gross, where chicken eggs can get, like, parasitic worms in them. So it would have looked like there were baby snakes potentially in those. Also, sometimes hens just act really aggressively. If you've ever been around chickens, you know that. So they were like, oh, they're rooster. So it's really that like crown concept. My hot take is that it's actually the green snake, which is like in the right area. And what's really weird is that in a lot of like natural history books from like the Middle Ages and medieval period, the green snake isn't listed, but basilisk is. Other snakes are listed, but so it's kind of like this, because we have a gap for the description of this type of snake, it's possible that it was exaggerated accounts. And as a bonus, they like to make their nests in places that are usually like dark and kind of gross, so like piles of leaves or even like piles of dung, and that's one of the characteristics of the basilisk, because that's like where they make their nests.
It sounds like the basilisk has some pretty heavy threats to it.
Speaking of heavy threats,
You're the
it's
heavy
me.
threat.
It's me.
Compared to the wyvern, how are we feeling? Like, was the basilisk, do you think it poses a bigger threat and challenge?
I think that this guy, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think that even though it's not like traditionally accurate, I would say in like the larger folklore, with all how poisonous it is, basilisk would win 100%.
He didn't seem as poisonous as the Harry Potter basilisk did.
Yeah.
So if I had to compare those two, the basilisk from Harry Potter is scarier.
What exactly like makes a monster? How would you specifically define a monster?
Ooh, good question. I get asked this a lot, as you can imagine. So my definition is a little bit different maybe than some others. So for me, a monster is any entity or being whose perceived deviance in form or function presents some kind of a threat and has some kind of like narrative, mythology, or story connected to it. So it kind of has to evolve over time, or at least by like word of mouth.
Did we, humanity, create the idea of monsters because we needed this like enemy or this explanation?
I think that's part of it. I think that inherently as humans, we're storytellers, and you can't have stories about good if you don't have stories about evil a lot of the time, or the gray area in between. So coming up with these sort of scapegoats or figures, sometimes real people, sometimes completely fictional, to sort of help explain.
Sometimes bog hags.
Sometimes bog hags. Is that what this is?
I think this is the bog hag.
Ooh, she's fun.
I love that she can disappear into the puddles.
Yeah.
I also don't want to be perceived. So
100%. Don't look at me at the grocery store.
no.
For real though. Me without
Understand
makeup.
it. So the bog hag, bilg hag, does she kind of fit the overarching category of hag, general hag?
I would say, yeah, hag traditions broadly are like monstrous women who have usually some kind of power, like witchcraft type power.
Okay.
But they can be defeated. Usually you can protect yourself from them. So something like the Boo Hag from Gullah Geechee culture here in North America has like very specific rituals and things you can do to protect yourself.
Spells or things that you would
Yeah,
cast
just honestly, not even just casting. It's like putting matches in your hair because they believe sulfur wards in the way. Having haint bottles, which are a shade of blue, and like painting your porch.
Yeah,
that shade. Yeah,
your little porch roof there.
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes it's more of like passive things like that than it is. Oh, bye.
Yeah.
Now we're looting her too.
Yeah, we are.
Ooh, hag tooth. Anytime there's some kind of like swamp or bog situation in a country or a place in the world, there's going to be some kind of monster that reportedly lives in it that wants to like pull you under. So even something like Kappa, which is more amphibian. You also have Nixies who could take sometimes human form and like drag you into the water. I mean, something like a mermaid also. Again, one of the reasons we've created monsters is to serve as like warnings, not just for like human behavior, but also
Scary
like,
places.
Scary places,
Yeah.
not just for kids, right? I mean, a lot of this too is when people were out hunting or like foraging and stuff, and when communities were more spread apart, just like on The Witcher, right? There's no one else around here. So like maybe stay away from the body of water we don't necessarily know what's in there. And even something more of like a forest guardian, like a Leshy, right? Or even Baba Yaga, is that you have to usually appease it or like give it some kind of offering. But again, it's just like respect nature, take what you need, leave what you don't, and you're probably going to be good for most this type of monster.
What do we know about bridge trolls? They ask, they live under bridges.
On top of bridge, under bridge.
Okay.
Also, like, in our current day and age, what is scarier than a troll? Like, it's taken on a new meaning, but, like, it's still very scary.
Originally, trolls were not about anything, like any specific type of monster. They were just considered like malevolent type outsiders. They literally were on boundaries, right? So that's why the bridge makes sense. It's because bridges were seen as boundaries between water and land into like two different spots of land. But it also could be something like Baba Yaga could technically be like a troll in like different, interpretations. So trolls could be people, they could be supernatural, they could not be supernatural. And a lot of what we see now of like the troll in the dungeon or like troll under the bridge that we're going to see in a second here.
I just looted his house, basically.
I wonder
seen
if
him,
he'd be mad.
but I have opened his chests. And, like, he did such a good job of avoiding me, and which is like,
God.
All right, well, I guess he shot first.
Is the boulder the classic weapon of the troll?
Boulder, usually, because again, there's strength, and that's kind of like what became the modern interpretation. And again, 19th century like collections of folklore had like these beautiful and cool illustrations of that sort of like warty, hunched over, like hulking type troll. And we've
It
just
is
kind of stuck
froggish.
with that.
It's like a
Yeah.
giant frog toad.
Yeah, kind of like it.
Almost looks like it's made of stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some really interesting stuff with trolls and like stones, and they were also associated with like blacksmith and masonry, which again, you would have to be very strong, so that would kind of make sense there.
Are the troll and the gnome at all? Are they cousins?
I would say they're like cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gnomes are going to be a lot smaller.
He's angry.
yeah,
Probably not
he's-
the smartest of creatures, or is
See, again, that's
that a misconception?
That's a misconception. And again, since troll was such a broad term originally, some of the earliest stories we have of trolls is like a female troll, and she actually recites, like, can speak perfect, Nordic language that like makes sense to the human encountering her, and she alludes to the fact that she's wealthy. She's also can be like a fighter. So there's a lot of like smart trolls that can talk, trolls that like had basically human characteristics again, because troll like this wasn't necessarily how they would have been pictured.
So we've seen a few monsters from The Witcher so far. Let us know in the comments what monster you've seen as your favorite, maybe one we haven't encountered yet. Or if you don't know The Witcher very well, let us know a monster from your childhood that stays in your nightmares. Like for me, the things that scare me aren't really like monsters like this, but I'm like, red eyes in the dark closet at night. That's what I think about from childhood, where you would, think this.
The water hag or the bridge troll, those are creatures. Whereas like vampire, werewolf, witch is often human who something happened to.
Supernatural
something,
twist.
That's what I love about the undead, just like as a whole, is because they were human first. And sometimes vampires are interesting too, because sometimes you choose to become one, but a lot of time you don't. And like that idea, I think, of having this like fate thrust upon you in a way that seems very different from like a troll or a bog hag or something.
Yeah, and it begs the age-old question, which is on our bracket: werewolf versus vampire, who wins?
Yeah. My instinct is vampire because you're a vampire all the time, whereas you're once a month a werewolf.
Not necessarily.
Oh.
So older werewolf lore, usually you had to put on some kind of garment to become, well, there's different types, but like to become a werewolf. So that'd be like a girdle or a belt of like the skin, and then you would transform. So it was something you could kind of take on or off. Some of the oldest werewolves of like men shape-shifting into wolves was actually the curse version, and then they have to, do something. Maybe they'll be able to turn back to human, but a lot of the time they can't. The whole moon thing, that's definitely more, I would say, modern, like 19th century type stuff.
And like, oh no,
Oh no!
wow, you just went snowboarding.
Yeah.
But I think
around.
I'm with you gut-wise. I think I would say vampire, just because vampires are usually a lot harder to kill. It's pretty much like decapitation, or fire, and those things will obviously work on a werewolf. But you could just stab a werewolf and kill one sometimes. So
So
I'm
we
gonna
don't
go.
need a silver bullet.
You don't need a silver bullet. That is actually completely a modern thing. So
Right, because bullets are so modern. So it's like, well, werewolves died before guns.
So the thing with werewolves and this idea of silver is that silver comes back into like alchemy. It was considered like a pure, force in alchemy. So there's some transfer for that. I'm pretty sure that the silver thing actually comes from early Hollywood movies of that being the thing that kills them, and just kind of transferred backwards. Yeah.
And alchemy was so much about like creating gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, like silver would be like, oh, we got silver.
I mean, the traditional thing, if like you're going to try to fight any type of monster, I would say universally or unilaterally,
Another
if you
thing?
have salt, iron, and or fire, you're probably good.
Okay, so
That's a Cyclops?
Wow.
what's going on here?
It definitely looks like a cycle. Oh, wow, it's huge.
I see at least one eye.
I think it's got one eye.
Where do you think they got their sandals?
They made them.
Yeah, I think they would have
Yeah,
to.
well, they have in like Homer's The Odyssey. I mean, they're like sheep herders, basically.
To what you were saying about like vampires and werewolves and like they're a little bit scarier to us. I think also there's something about like this is a very, to me, hulking kind of like devoid of thought. This is just you're going to attack aimlessly. Whereas like a vampire, I'm like, oh, you're
Yeah.
cunning and you're smart and you think like me.
So unlike trolls, for instance,
Yeah.
Cyclops usually aren't considered the smartest. I mean, again, that's like the Homer story is they basically trick Cyclops by poking it in the eye with a hot stick and then escaping underneath the sheep. But the fun fact about Cyclops is that there's nothing in that originally said it had to have one eye. But everyone just kind of assumed that the Homer Cyclops was one-eyed. So we actually get some really old depictions of these like Cyclops-type figures that have like 2 eyes or even 3 eyes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So where do you think that the Cyclops word then factored into the story?
I think a lot of Cyclops stuff and like one-eyed monster stuff, for me, it has a lot to do with the fossil record. So just the area where they're supposed to, like Mediterranean-esque sort of area. There was a lot of tusked animals there that if you that falls out, right, or like a horn, it could look like a socket for one really large eye.
Bog Hag versus Bridge Troll, both worthy opponents, but who took the trophy?
I'm gonna go with at least for The Witcher and just like general hags being kind of like wily, and I think the whole disappearing into the water thing was creepy. So I'm
like
gonna go
that.
with Bog Hag.
I like that too.
I agree.
Who are we up against now, Nicole?
I think that we are approaching a Leshy. Tell me about a Leshy.
interesting.
I feel like that's like lesser known.
Oh, it's sick.
No, it is sick.
Oh god.
That is 100%
See, but it
correct.
can control nature stuff. That makes sense.
So yeah,
Is it horned?
Aleshi is
Okay. It's got antlers.
Ooh, it's like Wendigo looking.
Slavic
Yes.
in history.
Yeah. So another Slavic one, which I just think is super cool because they're less monstrous and more like forest guardians. Like they clearly have a lot of powers, and even in the folklore, I love that it also looks like it's kind of made parts from a tree because they're definitely humanoid, male, and that their design of them or stories oftentimes have some kind of like natural element, like the trees they're supposed to protect or like the animals that they look after. In some versions, they're horned. So this does feel a little Wendigo
Yes.
inspired,
Yeah.
which in traditional lore, Wendigo don't actually have antlers.
Really? I've
No,
never seen an
that's a
interpretation without
completely-
that. That's crazy.
That's an
don't-
outsider interpretation.
They don't have them in Until Dawn, do they?
They don't. But going back to the Leshy, Leshies were literally you couldn't be a successful hunter or gatherer unless you were respecting nature around you and like taking care of the Leshy in some regard. So it wasn't even just about encountering the Leshy. It's like, were you properly hunting and treating the animals with respect? Were you treating the forest with respect? Oh, you are dead.
Oh, whoa.
Leshy gotcha.
That's
Great.
shocking to me, you guys. Shocking. I'm shocked.
It's a powerful
Shook it.
entity.
Don't mess with the forest.
Yeah.
Don't mess with the forest.
I'm lighting this guy on fire, though. I'm lighting this guy on fire, though.
But what's cool too about Leshies is that it's not just one. Like different regions of the forest and different areas had their own Leshy. And that they would get together. Leshies love gambling. They would gamble with each other. They had kind of more like human type characteristics and habits in addition to being like part of the forest.
What's your approach here, Nicole?
Well, it's like side dude.
Yeah, you gotta dodge them.
Now I have like dogs fighting me? Okay, well.
Okay, because they could call on the forest creatures. That would make sense.
That's not fair. That's not a fair
This
fight.
is, I went into its land, I did this.
If you never did anything bad to the forest and you encountered a Leshy, would they just be cool with you then?
Yeah,
kill it.
they're totally fine. Sometimes it could even like help lead you to like spots that would be beneficial for like resources, including animals, or like guides, basically.
I'm going to say maybe you didn't kill it, but we're going to respect the forest. So he's not going to bother us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I do think I killed it. But yeah, you're right.
Okay.
We're going to respect the
We're just gonna
forest
pretend we're just gonna
from
go back.
here on out.
That sounds great.
Who are you fighting?
I'm fighting some wraiths.
Ooh.
Now, are wraiths?
I was gonna say, how do you fight a wraith?
I don't know. And to me, a wraith is a ring wraith.
Yeah, they're like ghostly kind of.
Yeah, wraiths are like insubstantial. They're usually like the spirit or the entity of like a person who's deceased, but they've also can like appear as things like smoke. So I guess this kind of makes sense that they're like teleporting.
They have lanterns, which I think is nice.
Yes.
And they're green lanterns.
It reminds me of Poe from Zelda,
Absolutely pose.
which I guess probably took a wraith as inspiration.
yeah.
So it reminds me of Will-o'-the-Wisp, because in some Will-o'-the-Wisp legends, which are like these little blue balls of fire,
wisps,
yeah,
yeah.
the wisps that like lead you astray. In some lore, that it is like a wraith or a ghost or like a fey folk or something, even like a puka that's like carrying this light. So I like that.
Yeah, there's always the significance to the lantern of like, there's this, a lost soul in it or something, or over
they're
the garden
guiding
wall
you.
does it
They're
really
guiding
great.
you,
Yeah.
usually astray, and that's actually Will-o'-the-Wisps are where jack-o'-lanterns come from.
Oh yeah, yep,
Well, I defeated all the wraiths.
yeah. I guess they weren't.
That hard to
They
defeat.
weren't.
Okay, so the wraith versus the leshy then.
I mean,
We stomped those wraiths.
Yeah.
yeah.
The Leshy stomped me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the Leshy's an incredible like forest pseudo deity, so I'm gonna go with Leshy.
Okay, cool. Okay, so our final 4 contenders.
Oh gosh. Okay.
In the top bracket, we have the Basilisk versus the Bog Hag. What are we feeling there? The Bog Hag, we liked her style. But the Basilisk, we thought was pretty powerful.
I just think the bird lover in me is gonna say basilisk, but I do think the poison element probably outranks the bog hag.
Okay. So
Technically, it could probably kill the bog hag.
Basilisk is making it to the final 2 then. We haven't encountered a vampire, but I feel like we know so much about vampires to make an educated guess or decision here. The vampire versus the leshy.
I mean, you can stake a vampire, but you can't really stake a leshy. I think leshy would only be defeated if you literally completely eliminated their habitat, which is theoretically possible. But I mean, in this game, you could stake it. It could just use its wood power to like have the roots come up and stab the vampire.
Leshy.
Leshy.
Nicole, does this make you want to be a leshy over a vampire someday?
No, I still want to be a vampire.
Okay.
I want to be immortal and humanoid. So
I would want to be a ghost
ghost sounds cool.
to haunt people, but like in a really benign way, just like.
I would haunt a library and just keep learning.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
I'd love to be haunted by someone famous.
Yeah.
Just put it out there.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to Basilisk and Leshy, 2 very strong contenders. Nicole, what are your thoughts on this before we go to Emily?
I'm going to say Leshy because it was scary, it was noble, and it actually did kill me. So,
Valid.
yeah.
I'm gonna go Basilisk because I'm a snake lover. I think that they can slither around unassuming like, and I like that we have different interpretations of them as a monster. I think is pretty cool. So I'm just giving them cred there. But Emily, the final answer comes down to you. Who do you think would win in this battle of mythological creatures?
I'm gonna say the leshy. I mean, I think there's a part that leshy we can control some animals, right, in nature. So, basilisk were said to be afraid of weasels. So the leshy could like summon a weasel. The basilisk would be pretty easy pickings.
What? I mean, the Leshy is so OP. They have so many different powers they
Yep.
can harness. Wow.
And they're guardians.
Yeah, they
So
all
it's
have
like-
good purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too because ultimately they're not evil. So the Leshy is our winner. Thank you so much, Emily, for crowning him. I mean, I guess he wins, but we lose.
The forest also loses.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. How can people watch Monstrum?
You can find Monstrum on PBS's storied YouTube channel, and you can also find us on Instagram for Monstrum PBS, and my own personal website, dremilysarka.com. I have all my projects there.
And you have some new books coming out. You also have an audiobook.
Yes, I have an audiobook about serial killers, real and imagined, and I did just recently sign a book contract for a book about cryptids. This
Oh,
works
yay!
perfectly. Yeah,
So exciting.
Yeah, this was so much fun. So thank you all for having me and playing some spooky games.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much for watching and enjoying the show and subscribing. Nicole, how can they continue to support us?
You can continue to support us by going to pbssocal.org/gamer and make a donation. We are so appreciative of everyone who's donated, all those who are going to donate. And after you're done donating, tell your friends, tell people about us, and, like and subscribe.
We'll see you all next week. Happy Halloween.